Hi everyone, this is Daniel Gregg, and this is another Torah Times video production. Although I want it to be more kind of a podcast, that's why I'm off screen a little bit here. That's intentional. I think it's much more important to concentrate on the words than on the visual effects, but I think there should be some visual effect in too. So today I'm going to read you an excerpt from the Resurrection Day of Messiah. This is my book on Yeshua's resurrection, and the book is actually about a lot more than the resurrection, so we won't be talking about the resurrection of Yeshua per se today. We'll be talking about Daniel 9. Alright, so the section starts on page 325, and it's called Daniel's Prophecy of 70 Sevens. Okay, so I'll read and I'm going to interject some commentary. So not everything I'm going to say here is in the book. But I wrote this book quite a long time ago, and then using outdated software, and then the software became obsolete. And then I tried to edit it one way and edit it another way. And the book has never been keyed into a modern editing system. So there's things that I would change in the book that I can't change. So that will be in my comments. And plus my views on a few things have changed. So I will mention those along the way. Okay, so this chapter is called Daniel's Prophecy of 70 Sevens. Well, maybe it doesn't focus so well, but it's what I say that's important here. Daniel 9:24 contains an exact and precise prediction of when Yeshua would die for the sins of the world. So I would phrase that a little differently now. I would say when Yeshua would die because of the sins of the world, or on account of the sins of the world, or over the matter of the sins of the world. All those versions would probably be better than the word for, but that's another subject, and we're not going to diverge into it right now. This prediction is combined with the Torah, Temple, and Messiah. Jews reject it and corrupt it because of Messiah, and Christians reject it and corrupt it because of the Torah and the Temple. It should then be no surprise that neither synagogue nor church fully understand this prophecy, for corrupting it lies at the intersection of their mutual interests. Jews either forbid the reading of the book of Daniel or trot out anti-Messiah interpretations. Now I should comment on this forbidding to read the book of Daniel. I should probably vet that comment a little bit better. Probably at some point in history, the book of Daniel was forbidden to be read, but it doesn't mean that all Jews would forbid the reading of the book of Daniel. Actually, the rabbis don't have that much control over the Jewish community nowadays. So any Jew who wants to read the book of Daniel could. There might be some halakha at some point in history or something that did that. If somebody who knows anything about this, they can put a comment on that. Okay, so they certainly forbid understanding the book correctly, though, just as I would say Christians forbid understanding Daniel 9 correctly. So I think we should be an equal opportunity criticizer here. The Christian world deserves just as much criticism over this as the Jewish world. Okay, so Christians demonize the temple and the sabbatical year institution, and they demonize the Sabbath too, which is related. Okay, so the price of these transgressions is high, as it leaves interpretation full of contradictions and inconsistencies. The reason that I discuss this prophecy in a book about the death and resurrection of Messiah is that it is the final independent piece of conserving evidence that proves a Wednesday crucifixion and resurrection Sabbath. Okay. Unlike the error interpretations of Daniel 9 put out by the church and synagogue, this one goes with the true date of the crucifixion and resurrection and works out perfectly, for it only works with AD 34. And AD 34 only provides a Nissan 14 on a Wednesday, as shown. Now, I was listening on last Sabbath, I was listening to a lecture by a guy from Calvary Chapel lecturing on Daniel 9, and he was advocating for either AD 30 or 33 in his lecture, and he was alluding to his theory that he had constructed Daniel 9 around that. But these years don't work out because they don't have a 3 days and 3 nights. They depend on the Friday to Sunday scenario. Okay, so continuing here. And as Yeshua was not in the grave more than 3 days, but at least 3 days and 3 nights, the resurrection is fixedly determined to be on the Sabbath day at dawn, by the most absolute reckoning possible. The chart on page 331 gives an overview of how things fit together. So let's just flip over there really quick. Okay. 331. Okay. So this is the sabbatical year structure of Daniel 9. Let's see if we can get a little closer there. Right there. So you can just pause the video. I don't know how well that shows up, but the visuals in the book are best. You can get this book on Amazon, or you can order it directly from me on Torah Times. So I'm not going to be so heavily on visuals in this video. We're going to go with the verbal content. Okay. To translate the prophecy into modern terms of the simplest form, the prediction of Daniel 9 is that between a commandment to rebuild Jerusalem and the death of Messiah would be 7 sabbatical years plus 62 sabbatical years, with 1 sabbatical period being revealed for the end of days. Okay. The commandment was made in 445 BC. Now, there's a lot of pre-foundational stuff that's, you might think it's being taken for granted in this book, but it's not. Every detail is discussed somewhere else in this book. The commandment was made in 445 BC and the crucifixion in AD 34. So between these two dates, there are a sum total of 69 sabbatical years. Now, it will be important to detail the beginning point, the end point, and the measuring stick we are using. The end point is established by the Passion chronology in AD 34. So to confirm the end point and the rest of the prophecy, we have to explain how the measuring stick and the beginning point fit. If these two elements are confirmed, then the end point date is also confirmed. First, let's work on the measuring stick. The prophecy is measured in terms of so many sabbatical years. Right? To this, Jewish tradition admits, and Christian tradition ignores. The Jewish tradition has a solid biblical foundation. The units of measurement are called sevens, shavuim. In the consonant text of Daniel 9, 24 to 26, this is simply the word for 7, Shavah, with the plural ending im. Now, it is necessary to understand that the word 7, Shavah in Hebrew, is used both in a cardinal sense, 7, and in an ordinal sense, 7th. Deuteronomy 15:9 speaks of a sabbatical year as the year of the 7, Shanat HaShavah, using the cardinal number, but the meaning is 7th year. And so the New American Standard Bible translates it in the 7th year. That's in Deuteronomy 15:9, if you were to look that up in the Hebrew. And this isn't the only instance of a Hebrew number where cardinal number is used in a ordinal sense. Okay, so that happens with the word 50 also, 50 and 50th, and also with several other Hebrew numbers within the scripture. Thus, sevens are sabbatical years. A 7 need not be the whole 7 years. It only needs to be the 7th year abreast. At the same time, a 7 can also be the whole period. But if we count sevens, we must count unit-wise. To count 3 sevens, thus, can be part of a whole 7, and part of a 7. Okay, the prophecy works by both inclusively counting 7-year periods and by counting all the 7th years. It works both ways. Here is an illustration of the different ways to count sevens. Okay, so there's an illustration here in the book. Different ways to count sevens. By using inclusive counting, we see that the only essential requirement is that the period of time in question contain the stated number of sabbatical years. For 2 sevens is the same as 2 7th years. Inclusive counting allows us to say that 7 sevens and 62 sevens come in the period between 445 BC and AD 34, even though the whole period is less than 483 years. The sevens are shown in the chart on page 331, which I showed you already, but I guess I can stick that up here again. We're talking about this chart. Right there. See if we can get some sort of good focus here. All right. Next paragraph here. A key point is that Daniel 9:26 says, "And after 60 and 2 sevens, Messiah will be cut off. The Acharei HaShavuim Shishim Ushanaim." Okay, so this predicted that Messiah would die after the 62nd sabbatical year was finished. The word after, Acharei, means that it must be after the 62nd sabbatical year and not during it. So that's 62 sabbatical years. So the 62nd sabbatical year and the 7 sabbatical years, or 69th if you total them till Messiah, must be complete before Messiah dies. So 7 plus 62 is 69. Going back to the first sabbatical year, we find that the city must be built before the prophecy begins. This is because Nehemiah caused the debts to be canceled at the start of the 7th year, and the wall was finished before the Torah was read at the Feast of Tabernacles. According to Deuteronomy 31:10, this happened at the start of the 7th year. Okay, so we look up that passage. Then Moses commanded them, saying, "At the edge of 7 years, Miketz Shavah Shanim, in the set time of the year of release, in the Feast of Booths, when all Israel comes to appear before Yahweh your Almighty, at the place which he will choose, you shall read this law in front of all Israel in their hearing." And so I've got a little footnote here on the edge of 7 years, 319. 319. Follow the translation of Ibn Ezra, at the edge of 7 years, Deuteronomy 31:10. The proof that the Hebrew word means the beginning edge of the 7th year is provided by the use in Jeremiah 34:14 with respect to Exodus 21:2. The rabbinic Jews have the matter backwards when they say that the Torah should be read after the sabbatical year in the 8th year. Ibn Ezra corrected them and proved that it was the beginning point. The rabbinic miscalculation finds its origin in the need to confuse Daniel 9 with respect to Messiah. The Hebrew word miketz means at the boundary or edge of something, and not strictly at the edge of it. It is a word meaning extremity and may apply to a near extremity or boundary or a far boundary. Okay, so that's Deuteronomy 31:10. Moses says that the Torah must be read, quote, in the year of release. This also proves that the reading cannot be in the 8th year after the close of the Feast of Tabernacles. Rather, it must be at the Feast of Tabernacles in the year of release. So in the Hebrew, that's B'ma'od Shanat Hashimita. So that means, let's see, B'moed, in the appointed time of the year of the release. Okay, this is. I'm going to turn the page. And we're coming up on 15 minutes. This is a very important point. The 7th year is the year of release. The 8th year is not the year of release. The 7th year is a Sabbath year, and for this purpose, and for the purpose of ceasing from debts, as well as working on the land. Okay, yes, I stumbled over my reading here. And is for the purpose of ceasing from debts, as well as working the land. Nehemiah compelled Judah to obey the law released, as recorded in Nehemiah chapter 5. And then a scribe with the personal name of Ezra, but of the family name of Sariah, read the Torah at the Feast of Tabernacles in chapter 8. This means that the walls of the city were completed in the 52 days before the sabbatical year began. So, I have a little chart here, table 12, Artaxerxes I, summary, Parker and Duberstein. So this is just an outline of Artaxerxes' reign here. Okay, we'll put the little zoom out here, I guess, and see what happens. There we go. Now, the beginning point was 445 BC. This is matched with the rebuilding of Jerusalem in the book of Nehemiah, who states that it was in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, Nehemiah 2:1. So we have a little footnote here, footnote 321, that the references to Artaxerxes I is confirmed by the Elephantine Papyri, which show the sons of Nehemiah's archfoe Sanballat were active in the last decade of the 5th century, 410 to 401, Sanballat being apparently advanced in years. They also show that the high priest at the time of Ezra was Yohanan, grandson of Nehemiah's contemporary Eliashib. So you can see Nehemiah 3:1, 12:10 and following, 12:22, and this is taken from John Pright, page 391, A History of Israel. Also see Pritchard, Ancient Near Eastern Text, page 492. Okay, back to the text. Now, what was impossible before 1900 and unavailable except to experts before 1950 is now made plain by archaeologists and astronomy. And that is exactly when the 20th year of Artaxerxes was, and exactly when the month of Nisan was. This is shown in table 12 above from Parker and Duberstein. So I showed you that table, but I can show it again to you here. Really close up. Huh. A reverse image. Hopefully it's not reversed when it comes out on the camera. Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out when we compile this video. I haven't quite noticed that before. Are the words reversed too? I've never seen this happen before. Alright. Yeah, they are. Well, I'm not going to pause and debug the video for this right now, but what you'll be seeing may be reversed. And I've never seen that happen in my lens before. It's always, that screen always showed it correctly. Alright. Okay. Now, what was impossible before 1900 and unavailable except to experts before 1950, is now made plain by archaeologists and astronomy, and that is exactly when the 20th year of Artaxerxes was, and exactly when the month of Nisan was. This is shown in the table 12 above from Parker and Duberstein. Thus, it is known that Nisan 1, Artaxerxes' 20th years, began on April 13th, Julian, 445 BC. The reign of Artaxerxes I is also astronomically fixed by tablet VAT 5047. Okay, so that's known as Venus Astronomical Text 5047, dated to the 11th year of Artaxerxes and recording the positions of Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and 2 lunar positions. From this information, astronomers can fix Artaxerxes' reign in absolute time. Note 332. Further details of this prophecy are given in the Scroll of Biblical Chronology and Ancient Near Eastern History, Volumes 1 and 2. So that's 2 other books of mine on general biblical chronology. Alrighty. This means the decree to rebuild the city and the walls was in the spring of 445 BC. And as explained before, the walls were built next, and then the sabbatical year began in the fall. This is the first 7. Okay, so a little dagger note on this. As a day containing hours may be inclusively counted, so also a Sabbath year period containing years may be inclusively counted, one part thereof as a whole number. The first 7 is 451 Tishri to 444 Tishri. Okay, which I abbreviate as 451.T to 441.T. Okay. This is the first 7. To repeat, the year between Tishri 1, 445 BC and the last day of Elul, 445 BC, is confirmed to be the 7th year by 2 witnesses. First, Nehemiah caused all the debts to be remitted at the beginning of the year, and second, a scribe named Ezra read the Torah. For the Torah commands that it must be read at the beginning of every 7th year, Deuteronomy 31:10, and that debts also be canceled then. The year expressed above is summarized 445 to 444 BC. The year was the 7th year as proved by 2 witnesses. The first 7-year period includes the first sabbatical year. Okay, let me just explain that. The commandment was given just before it began in 445 BC. We thus count part of the first sabbatical period inclusively, there being part of year 6 and all of year 7 left. Or we may merely count 7th years. Counting out 7 sevens and then 62 sevens moves us forward to AD 32-33. The prophecy says, then after the 7 sevens, then after the 7s, 60 and 2, Messiah will be cut off. Daniel 9:26. So after AD 32-33 would be AD 34. The measuring stick is thus perfect. There is no way that the crucifixion could be in AD 33. This is because it is still during the sabbatical year in AD 33, and the prophecy says Messiah would be cut off after the sabbatical year. Further, it is quite impossible to shift the 7th year back 1 year because Nehemiah would be canceling debts at the end of the 7th year, and Ezra would be reading the Torah at the end of the 7th year. And this would contradict the instructions to do these things at the start of the 7th year. So AD 33 cannot be accommodated with its Friday date by shifting the 7th year backward. There are no loose ends in this prophecy. The technical details of all the biblical chronology are dealt with in the Scroll of Biblical Chronology and Ancient Near Eastern History, Volumes 1 and 2. Here I will summarize some technical points. Ezra came to Jerusalem in the 7th year of Artaxerxes II, but it was not his first time in the city. 2. His second appearance in Jerusalem corresponds to the 7 sevens in the prophecy. 3. If a Tishri epoch is applied to Nehemiah 1:1, it should be backdated and not forward dated. This is proved by the time of Xerxes' death. More on this later. 4. Cyrus is a surname or a throne name, according to history in Isaiah 45:4, and thus was inherited by Artaxerxes. 5. Josephus gives the title Cyrus to Artaxerxes. Thus it is explained how Cyrus gave orders to rebuild the city and the temple, spanning over 3 kings who inherited the title, and it is clear that the prophecy began with Nehemiah under Artaxerxes I. It is confirmed that Daniel 9:24 to 26 teaches 69 sabbatical years from 444 to AD 32-33, and that Messiah was cut off after these in AD 34. And AD 34 is the only year that works such that Yeshua died on the 4th day of the week and rose from the dead on the 7th day of the week. Little footnote here, asterisk. The resurrection began before night ended and ended after day began, so that Messiah was in the heart of the earth only 3 days and 3 nights, i.e. the depth of Sheol, yet it was also on the 7th day as written, his going forth is according to deep dawn, Hosea 6:3. So that's the end of this section. Next up, on the next video, hopefully without any bugs in it, the section will be titled The Failure of AD 33 and Daniel 9. Okay, thanks for listening.